is the second session of our hopefully weekly series on just providing different resources, an opportunity to discuss what they do and the services they provide, and obviously in this day, any impact that COVID-19 might have on the work that folks tuning into this could be aware of, just so that we can really provide the same array of services we normally do, and hopefully reach a wider audience. So this week we're talking about some different financial resources across the state, both in higher ed and really across kind of the veteran community that they might not be aware of or might not be fully aware how to access. So we've got a few different presenters this week, and let's go ahead and get started. Let's start with you, Nikki, and Fame.
Sure. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Absolutely.
Okay. See if I can get this going. Okay, can you all see the Fame logo? We good there?
All good.
Awesome. So I just wanted to tell you all a little bit about Fame. I didn't want to, I could talk about this for 14 days straight for anyone who will listen. So what I put together was just a few resources that I think veterans may or may not know about, and I want to make sure that any students or anyone with military affiliation knows. You guys have amazing benefits through the military, but a lot of students that I've worked with, including veteran students, didn't realize they could actually access other stuff. So I just wanted to get the word out about what we do and what's available to you, and that we are a free resource to really anyone. I worked with a dad from Hawaii the other day who is a veteran, so really I will work with anybody. But we're free resources for me. We're free resources for Mainers, basically. Some of the stuff I'm going to talk about reference a publication called Pay that you can download a PDF from our website, but we also have a ton of other cool tools out there. So check out famemaine.com/publications. You can download PDFs, print out stuff, whatever you like. So I just want to point out, aside from the veterans education benefits that you have, that there's other money available to help pay for school and other things that go along with going to school, like rent, books, food, things like that. So what's out there? The federal Pell grant, which is the largest amount you can receive for next year, is $6,345. There's the Maine State Grant, which is a grant for Maine residents who attend a Maine college and qualify financially. And you do something on time. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But there's also college scholarships that are available too. And I want to make sure that everybody out there goes for all the stuff that they can access, because one of the reasons why we lose students, life. And you know what helps with those life issues? Money. Doesn't buy happiness, but it helps out a lot. So how do you get your paws on that money? You do something called the Fafsa. And if you've ever done the Fafsa before, it is not really a hard process, takes about half an hour. The first step to getting into that Fafsa is to set up what's called an Fsa Id. I'm just going to talk briefly about the Fafsa process, because I think we're going to go maybe in a little bit more detail on a future meeting. But the Fsa Id is something that you set up. It's a username and password that you use to get into the Fafsa. But it also signs your Fafsa. But it also accesses any other federal education website. So this is something you use across the board on a bunch of different websites. It's just a username and password. If you can get this set up before you start the Fafsa, that's going to help. It is attached to your social security number, date of birth, and legal name. So when you do this, I think this is the hardest part about applying for financial aid. Take your time when you do this. Make sure you use your legal name. Make sure your social security number is correct. Because once you set this up, it's tied to that social security number. If you can't remember your username and password later, you can't just scrap it and start a new one. You got to recover it. So this is not too bad, but go to that website, fsaid.ed.gov, set up your username and password. Then you can go into fafsa.gov. This is the Fafsa website. It's free. It stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. We got to do this every single year. So when you set up that username and password, make sure you have that written down, because every single year when we go to do the Fafsa, you're going to need that again. So when do you file the Fafsa? Well, it depends. It's a hard depend. If you're planning on attending school this summer, there's a Fafsa out on fafsa.gov that's available right now. And it's going to ask for your 2017 income information. If you want to attend school next fall or next January, that Fafsa is available right now. Go to fafsa.gov and fill out a 2020-2021 Fafsa. They're going to ask for 2018 income information. If you think that if you have somebody who maybe has a child who is a junior, their Fafsa isn't available until October 1st. And that Fafsa is going to ask for 2019 income information. Now, I mention all of this because I'm talking to so many people right now whose income has changed. So those, let's say a high school senior or someone who's going to be in school next fall, they filed a Fafsa using 2000 income information. And what's happened recently? A lot of people have lost their jobs, have wages cut, they've been furloughed, their income has changed. So I just want to let you know that if you filed a Fafsa or if you plan to file a Fafsa and it's asking about income information that's different, there's always been a process for that called an appeal or professional judgment, where you contact the financial aid office and say, hey, this is what happened to me, this is when it happened, and this is how I document it. So for, say, someone who recently just lost their job or has had their wages cut, I would say email the financial aid office, let them know on March 30th, I lost my job, here's my last pay stub, and this is what I estimate my income to be for 2020. The financial aid office can take that information and estimate new information for your Fafsa. So as people are doing this, I don't want anyone to get a little freaked out by saying, that's not my income now. There's a process in place for that. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so once you get into the Fafsa, this is just an important tip. When you get in, it's going to ask, when are you going to be in college? Remember how I showed you those 3 different Fafsas that are available? This is where you choose when you're going to be in school. I feel like a lot of times this is where people make a mistake. They said, I filed my Fafsa, but the school said they don't have it. Right when you get in, I want to make sure you filed the right academic year Fafsa. So that's all about the Fafsa. We're going to get into that a little bit later, or if you need help doing the Fafsa, I can do a one-on-one virtual meeting with you, a phone call, whatever. But I do want to let you know that in order to get a Pell grant, you needed to file that Fafsa. But I also wanted to let you know that it used to be back in the day that you only had a Pell grant available for, let's say, for the fall and spring semester. And then if you wanted to continue in the summer, you kind of ran out of your Pell grant money. Well, back in 2017, they extended that program so students could go nonstop and they could have a summer term Pell grant too. And I don't think a lot of people realize that that's available to them. So I just wanted to make a shout out that if you want to keep going in the summer, I think this is especially important for people who may have lost their job and want to like get done a degree program like right now as soon as they can. There's money out there for that too. So just be aware. I want to make sure that everyone is applying for scholarships as much as they can. A lot of people think there's nothing really out there for adults. It's all for high school seniors. There's an amazing scholarship for adult learners on the Maine Community Foundation website. Maine Community Foundation has a plethora of scholarships to apply for, and they do a great job of sorting it out by scholarships for adults or for people who live in Hancock County, whatever the deal may be. The FAME website has a scholarship search, and online there's a ton of stuff. If you Google military scholarship, it's going to be a full-time job. So just be aware that there's a lot of free money out there, and I think people don't apply because they don't think their chances are great. I can tell you a lot of people don't apply for scholarships, so your chances are actually better than you think they might be. So go look for some of that free money. I also wanted to mention to think outside the scholarship or grant money box and think about where you work. Do they offer a tuition reimbursement program, or do they offer a scholarship? I just did a search online for businesses in the Bangor area, and these are the businesses that offer tuition waiver programs or tuition reimbursement or scholarships. So check with your work and see if they offer anything. I also want to give a shout out to Saving for College. I know that right now when we don't have a lot of resources available to us, it's not awesome to think about savings, but I do want to mention that there are some savings programs where if you, these are all investment programs where if these investments make any money, you aren't taxed on the earnings if you use it for college. And I mention this specifically because I want to let you guys know about the Next Gen program if you don't know already. This is a college investing plan for Maine residents. It's our 529 plan, where if you open an account right now, this is designed for young people, but let me just say no age limit on it. So someone as old as me, if I want to go back to school, I can open up an Next Gen program. And Maine residents get $100 for opening an account. But then throughout the year, this program will match 30% of what I save, up to $300. So if you're going to be paying cash for college anyway, why not get some matching money and then pay that towards school? Oh, and there's also a one-time $100 grant if you set up an auto contribution to your account, and after you make 6 contributions, you get another $100. So there's a way to get $500 for college right off the bat. I also want to mention for those students that have student loans that they're paying off on, there are some educational tax credits for either paying off student loans or for being in college. I want to make sure that everyone is taking advantage of these programs because I feel like not a lot of people know that as you're making student loan payments, if you work in Maine, there's something called the Educational Opportunity Tax Credit, where you can take the payments that you've made towards your student loan and get tax credit, maybe get a bigger refund, and use that money to pay off your student loan and take the tax credit again next year. Wow, that was a really confusing way to put that. Sorry. There's some free money out there for paying off your student loans, but also for being in college. If you ever gotten a 1098-T form and you're like, what does this mean? That's to take a federal tax credit in order to get some money back. My husband is, he's a teacher, but he's also self-employed. So we always end up paying in until my stepson went to college and we got that tax credit for him being in school. We got a refund and it was like Mardi Gras, like big deal. It was amazing. But I did want to point out that if you think this is something that you could have been taking and you didn't, you can go back 3 years on your tax returns and do amendments. So just something to put up there. So also thinking about outside the free tuition or outside the scholarship box, there's some schools in Maine that are offering free tuition programs. So University of Maine Augusta, UMFK, University of Maine Presque Isle, and Machias. If you file a Fafsa and go to these schools, there's some other qualifications too, but they offer free tuition and fees. You still probably have to pay for room and board if you're going to live on campus, but there's some programs to look into. I think it's amazing. Also, there's a lot of affordable community college stuff going on right now, so those are great schools as well. I don't know if you all are aware of the lack of people we have in Maine. We are definitely one of the oldest populations in the country. We have a lot more people retiring than we have young people to fill positions. So there's a workforce initiative that has been happening for a while where we're trying to get anyone to get a credential to be able to fill good paying jobs. So if that's one of the things we're missing humans, and humans that have a credential to do some of these jobs that pay really well. So there's a grant program out that Maine community colleges have taken advantage of where they're able to offer free training programs. And these come up here and there, but I just noticed this week that there's a ton of programs out there right now that are online, free, no cost, and that you can do when you're available. So something to check out there. Look for these free programs. They're popping up all the time. We try to post these on our Facebook whenever I find something like this, just to let people know that there's these programs available. University of Maine also has an adult degree completion scholarship program. So if you are thinking about going to UMaine or one of the UMaine systems, something to look into. Connect with resources at the famaine.com/publications website. We have some, what we call the Lifetime Learning Kit, where we put together one-pagers on things like what are veteran education benefits, or this gray page that I have here in the middle, resources for students. These list other programs within the state that you can access if trying to deal with those things. We don't want to ever lose a student. And if somebody has an issue like they lost childcare or transportation, that can derail someone's education. So we came up with a list of resources where if someone needed help with something, this might help them bridge that gap so they can continue their education. Also, New Ventures has a rainy day savings account program where they have some matching money, which is amazing. So New Ventures is a great program that not only has online classes that you can take that have to do with financial literacy, but also I love that matching savings program. So great idea. Anyone who is familiar with the Alpha on Leaders program, FAME partnered up with the Alpha on Foundation to create a debt reduction program. So this is designed to get that workforce shortage that we have, to get people who work in STEM fields to either come to Maine or stay in Maine. This was a grant program that was going to last 3 years, and last year was the last year. They're going to continue that on for 2020. So go on to alphaonleaders.org. You can apply until June 5th. So basically, this is a competitive program that you would go on and say, this is what I am doing. I'd like to stay and live in Maine. If you are chosen, they will forgive half of your student loan debt, or they'll pay it off up to $60,000. So if you're not sure that that is, you work in a field that might be considered, there is on the Alpha on Leaders website a list of qualified fields that you work in. It's pretty broad. So it doesn't cost anything to apply, and you're not out or anything by applying, so go check that out. Talking about student loan forgiveness programs, if you have a student loan and you work in either a nonprofit, government, tribal agency, there is something called public service loan forgiveness. It's something that I know it's been in the news a lot by people hearing that they're not going to get it, or they tried and they failed. I think the issue is that a lot of people don't realize that this is a program that takes 10 years. You have to work for 10 years in that field in order to get whatever's left after 10 years forgiven. But there's things that you have to do along the way for those 10 years. And you can go on to the FAME website. Actually, I don't see it listed here, but I'm going to put on some information about how to check that out. But please, if you need help doing this, you have to do what's called an employment certification form, and I am happy to help out with that. So I've got my contact information at the end of the slide. I can help with that. There's also teacher loan forgiveness, where you can get up to $17,500 of your student loans forgiven if you work in a teaching field in a high need area. And I think all of Maine is pretty high need, so something to check out. If you have not done your taxes and you still want to, just wanted to let you know that if you've not done it because you're not really sure how to file your taxes, there is some free help. It's called Cash Maine. They'll help you do your taxes. There's a phone number in there to give them a call. But I feel like a lot of people don't feel like they're going to file taxes because they didn't make enough, or it's not really worth it. You'd be surprised how much of your taxes you can get back. And I think that's super important right now, as we're all trying to make sure that, you know, if you've lost your job and you've never filed taxes, please go back and file taxes, because that's a great way to get a refund. I just want to talk about the resources that are available through what's happening right now. Things on the financial aid front are changing almost, it feels like, every minute. I think I spend most of my days right now trying to read through federal regulations and figure out what they're talking about. But here's the things I want you guys to know. There's like a gazillion dollars going out to colleges right now to be able to offer students emergency assistance. Every school gets to decide how that money goes out to students, and they're all working their tails off right now trying to figure out how do we do this equitably. But I just wanted to let you know, as a student, you may have some money coming your way, but I need you to watch your email and watch their social medias to find out. A lot of schools are doing an application process, and I think if someone is not watching for this, or they're kind of too wrapped up in everything else that's going on to look that this might be another funding source for you. If you were previously working work study and you can't do that job anymore because the campus is closed, the school may still be able to pay you. The feds are saying, we're going to open this up so that we're still going to let people pay their work study students even though they're not working. So check with your school to see if that's available to you. If you have a student loan right now, all of your interest and all of your payments are going to be frozen until September 30th. You don't have to do anything in order to get this. Your lender should be doing this automatically, but I would tell you to call your lender, but what I'm hearing is that their call centers are overloaded. So I think anything that you can do on the website yourself or call me, then I can probably help you with that. If you have a defaulted student loan, if it's federally held, and this is such a weird term, if the government owns your loan and you had defaulted before, they had been taking income tax refunds, or they garnish wages or things like that to just take the money to pay off your student loan. They are ceasing to do this until September 30th. So it's something to keep in mind. If you have a loan that is not federally held, now these are probably student loans that had gone out before 2010, there's a possibility you might have a bank-owned student loan, or any loans that FAME administers, like the Educators for Maine or Health Professions loans, or even your credit card companies. If you are struggling to make payments, reach out to whoever it is. And I'm seeing amazing help that they're getting, even like I received something from my, the people who own my mortgage saying, if you can't make your payments, please give me a call and we're gonna work it out. So my kids have a tendency to get into their bubble, kind of try and forget everything that's happening. A lot of these deferment options for all things require some sort of action. So reach out, don't be afraid. And I can help, I can go on a conference call with you if you need some help doing that. Okay, so that is it for me. My email address is nvachon@famemaine.com. Please give a call to our 800 number and you can be routed to me through our phone line. So give me a call. I'm happy to help anyone with one-on-one help for doing a Fafsa, figuring out your student loan, whatever the case may be. I'm here to help you guys. So please give me a call. I miss you all so much. That is it for me. Any questions?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So if I'm using a GI Bill to go to school and it's paying for my tuition, but I also qualify for a Pell grant, who gets that grant money?
So the GI Bill and the Pell grant will go to the school onto your student account, right? And I consider that like your pot, like your charges get applied, your payments get applied. Any money that overpays your bill, the school is required to return that to you. Does that make sense? So if your GI Bill and your Pell grant have paid all that you owe the school, money's going to come back to you. Or you can ask them to keep it on your account for next semester if you wanted to. But I find that people often need money for gas, car repairs, pizza, books. Anything else?
Yeah, I got a few questions. A couple of them I'll save for the future when we dive more in depth. But a big picture one that I hear occasionally is especially for married students, specifically veterans is what I deal with, but spouse makes too much money. Why should I apply? Why should I fill out a FAFSA? I'm not going to get anything. What is what you would say in that situation?
I get that a lot. From behind the scenes, I can tell you there's no downside to doing a FAFSA. It's free. It takes maybe half an hour. When I worked in financial aid, I would get grants like from the nursing department, and they'd say, hey, we applied for this grant and you need to figure out who to give this money to. Well, I don't work in the nursing department, so I don't know all their students, but you know who I do know? People who filed a FAFSA. So even if there were some times that a student didn't have financial need, but they were in the right program and their grades were great, and I knew that they needed money because they filed a FAFSA, I mean, that's the only way I could find them. So I would say there's no downside, and there's sometimes that I was able to give a scholarship to somebody because they filed one.
That's great. The other one that kind of came up, well, when you're talking about FAFSA and the username, password, write it down because that's yours forever. What about folks that take maybe a significant gap in education, and then they want to fill out a FAFSA and they have no clue what their username password is because that was however many years ago? What is that process like?
Yeah, so when you set up your username and password, they ask for an email address and a cell phone. You have to have one or the other because they're going to email you and text you a code that basically is going to link your email address and cell phone to that ID, so that years later, when you can't remember it, you can again get a code sent to you and you can reset your password or be shown your username. But also now, if you don't remember your username, because you've linked your cell phone and email address to it, instead of using your username, you can use your email address or your cell phone. So going to that same website, all that website does is manages your profile. That's all it does. fsaid.ed.gov. There's one tab that says create an ID, and there's another one that says manage my FSA ID. If you go to manage, there's a forgot username and forgot password link where you put in, what you think, let me see, trying to remember what the process is because it's a little bit different, but if you enter in your email address and your date of birth, they say, okay, we found you. Do you want us to email you, text you, or answer challenge questions? And I don't ever want anyone to answer challenge questions because no one remembers them. No judgment. I don't either. My favorite color changes every day. But if you do answer the challenge questions, you have to wait 30 minutes to be able to use your ID. And I don't know about you, but after 5 minutes, I've moved on to something else. So I just think the challenge questions, let's not even look at it. Let's use that username or use that email address or cell phone to get a code. And if all else fails, there is 1-800 for Fed Aid, where they have, I think it's like option 2 or something, where you get just FSA ID help. And there's someone that can see behind the scenes. Like I've had people who don't work at the place where that email address was, and they don't have that cell phone number anymore, so they have no way of recovering it. That 1-800 number, they've been awesome, and it doesn't take as long. Usually you call a federal helpline, you have to wait 3 hours. They're super fast.
Great, thank you.
Anytime. I'm going to take off my share screen.
Any other questions for Nikki and Fane?
Call me if you need anything.
Awesome. All right, you ready, Stacy? Change our lives?
Yeah, I'll try. No pressure. Let me get my PowerPoint up here. Oops. All right, so I'm going to be talking today. My name's Stacy. For anyone who does not know me, I'm currently the clinical coordinator of programs for Easterseals in Maine. So today I'll talk about VFAP, the Veterans Emergency Financial Assistance Program that we administer. Easterseals has a few other programs as well, primarily case management for veterans across the state, but today we'll focus on the VFAP financial assistance application and what you can expect from that. So simply how people can apply. The application can be mailed to you, faxed to you. You can go on our website directly and print it off if you have any questions. So if you call or email, then someone will get back to you with that application, or if you just have any other questions about the process, those two call or email options shown there are the best way to get in touch with someone. The MVS referral email goes to a few different people in the organization. So if someone doesn't get back to you, then there's a few people monitoring that email so that we can make sure we're answering any questions. So who should apply? Any veteran with an honorable or general honor under honorable discharge, a veteran who is experiencing a financial hardship and cannot afford the necessary bill or expense. It's the VFAP application and eligibilities are not one size fits all. So if you're unsure if you should apply, then definitely give us a call and let us help you figure out if we can help you in that regard. So I would say if you're not sure, the best recourse is to just give us a call and we'll talk you through it. Because even if we can't help you with this program, like many of us, we're pretty well connected within the community that we can probably find some other resources that you would be a good fit for. So the application, there are a number of documents needed to apply. The list is here. What I want to say is that applications are not reviewed until all the documents are completed and submitted together. Sometimes we see that people will submit things in batches. And so I just want to make sure that people know that things are not reviewed and decisions are not made on the application until everything is submitted together. A couple other things I want to point out about documentation that sometimes people get caught up on. We do require 2 months of a bank statement with a current account balance on the day or time frame that you're applying. Sometimes people don't have bank statements for various reasons. They just don't use banking institutions. That's fine. That should not hold you up in applying. We can't make you do something that you don't have, obviously. So again, please call and we can just figure that out. Other things that kind of get people caught up on the documents are the W-9 from a vendor. Sometimes we already have them if we've worked with that vendor a lot. Examples are Central Maine Power. So definitely reach out to us if you're having trouble connecting with the vendor on the W-9. Sometimes the vendor doesn't understand if they're smaller agency or single landlord, they don't understand why a W-9 is needed, and we're happy to have that conversation and explain why we need that. We also need the estimate or bill that states, we need something stating the total amount that you're asking for, so that we can just kind of verify that whatever we're helping is getting paid towards that amount due. So what to expect when you apply? Again, once all the documents are submitted, they get reviewed, and if they are approved, then we will send a check directly to the vendor within 48 hours. So the turnaround, once we have all the documentation, is pretty quick. We can make payments. We can work with vendors pretty quickly once we have all the documentation and make a decision. If we have worked with people that sometimes getting all the documentation together can take a while. So if it's super emergent, like you really need that motel stay that tonight, or else you and your family are going to be on the street, then let's have a conversation about that, where our goal here is to be helpful, not to create more barriers and feel like you can't access the service or the funds. So definitely give us a call if you start filling out the application and feel overwhelmed. We're here to be helpful, not feel like we're just making your circumstances more difficult. These funds are intended to be for emergency financial assistance, so I understand that sometimes in emergencies you don't have the ability to work through a multiple page application and gather all that information, so we're happy to help get that information. We do this a lot, so we're pretty well versed and creative in how we figure out to making it work and making it happen. What things that we will not pay for, this is by no means an extensive list, but certainly the kind of key things. We will not reimburse an expense that has already been paid. So if you paid for a vehicle repair, you paid for your rent, or you paid for some expense, and now you're like, oh shoot, I couldn't actually afford to do that. Can you, because I can't buy food, or I can't do something else. Can you repay that? The answer is going to be no. We will work with you on looking at what some of your other expenses are, and maybe try to get creative on what we can do around whatever expenses you had. We will not pay credit cards, and we will not pay medical expenses, either current or past due. Again, credit cards and medical expenses, there's often ways to work through those with vendors, so we can help set up payment plans, look at other options as far as how to manage that debt or that expense. The process can be pretty simple as far as call us, get the application. We can help talk you through eligibility if you have any other questions. We can help you apply if that assistance is needed. We also work with other service providers in the community that are applying on behalf of people. So it can be a veteran directly or another provider that applies for these funds. And then you just send the information directly to us, either fax or the contact info there. The application does also outline all the ways that you can get the information to us. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Of course I do. I have questions for everybody.
Great.
No, I have heard that the application, and I haven't heard it specific. I know the American Legion is also handling some of this work, so I don't know if it's any one spot specifically. But I've heard that the application can be a bit cumbersome. And I see some of the required documentation you're looking for in this. Is there any one area of particular note that you see as being the primary hiccup, or what people seem to be struggling with more than others?
I would say bank statements are often the thing that people struggle most to get to us. But again, if you do online banking, you can take screenshots on your phone or on your computer, send that to us. Not all banking institutions will do this. Some will not, but some will. If you ask them to fax your statements, you can have them fax it directly to us. So there are some ways that we try to work with people to try to make it as low barrier as possible. But I find that can sometimes be the area that gets people the most stuck.
Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Stacy.
Another area that can delay the payment is obtaining a W-9. We don't necessarily rely on the applicant to track down a W-9. A lot of times we'll end up doing that, but so if anyone is wondering why the payment didn't get sent out within the 48 hours of decisioning, it's usually because we're trying to track down the vendor to get us the W-9.
If I can weigh in, this is Kevin Russo, Bureau of Veteran Services. This is the first year we've had this program, and I think many of you know that. So it's a work in progress, this program, for sure. We had cases of people, unfortunately, trying to maybe, take advantage of us. So we're trying to find the right balance, to make sure that this, these funds are going to the folks, and the purpose of the fund and the people that the veterans we want to get that money to. That said, I can't say enough about the job that Easterseals and American Legion has done for the Bureau of Veteran Services and for the, veteran community as a whole. It's not a lot of money, really, but it's just kind of helps get people through. And that was the intent of the program. So, what I would say to that is, the Legion and the Easterseals, they'll work with you. If you got a good, if you have a legitimate emergency need, I've seen it time and again from both of them. They will work with you. So I really don't let the application process scare you off. It's kind of like financial aid for college, I guess. We are here to help, and we don't want to let paperwork get in the way, but we just have to do certain things just to make sure that it's a legitimate need. So we're that's a work in progress, and we're working to find that balance, and we'll continue to kind of amend that as time goes on.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah. Yep.
And I guess I do have another question that maybe you can answer, Stacy or Kevin. It doesn't look like we ended up with a representative from the Legion on this call, unfortunately. I'm just wondering, can either of you speak to the difference? I know both Easterseals and the Legion is kind of administering this program. I'm just wondering, what's the difference between one or the other? How does that look?
Sure. The short answer is there is no difference. When we thought about the two vendors we wanted to administer this program to us, we really wanted to have, we wanted to be able to reach the whole veteran community. And Easterseals and the Legion does that. So, the Legion has a statewide footprint, with posts all around, and chapters all around the state, so that they're really able to, have that statewide footprint. But Easterseals, does a tremendous job from a human services, social services standpoint. So, we're working really hard to make sure that there really is no difference between each of the two vendors. The Legion and Easterseals and ourselves worked really hard to make sure that we're sharing information so that one person isn't trying to hit up both people or double dip, that type of thing. So, in theory, there should be no difference where folks go. It's where they're most comfortable. And, some folks, some veterans are maybe a little more comfortable talking to like a social services agency like Easterseals, and some veterans might be more comfortable talking to an American Legion, and that's fine. So we work through those. We have, regular meetings amongst the three organizations to try to work through all those issues. Does that answer your question, Camden?
Yes, it sure does.
Okay, great.
All right, and then I got one last question for you, Stacy, specifically, and I do know we have another presenter, so sorry for chatting everybody's ear off. Is there any sort of requirement if somebody was looking to access these funds through Easterseals? Is there any sort of care requirement through your other services that you try to? I'm sure you offer that up as an additional resource, but there's no requirement to do that, right?
No, there's no requirement to access any of our other kind of case management or employment case management services that we offer. We will always talk to people about it, because we want to let people know that it's an option, and in different ways in which it could help them in various circumstances that they're presenting with. But it's not a requirement to do so, and that's totally fine.
Anecdotally, have you seen them kind of go hand in hand? Have people reached out to you for the financial services and access to your other resources?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of times people will call for the financial assistance and maybe not realize or not really be thinking about other supports that they could use. And after we have a conversation, they're like, yeah, sure, it can't hurt at this point, so why don't we see what happens? And I think it ends up working out well, because we can end up working with people on those longer term goals. The emergency financial assistance is to help mitigate any emergent needs right now. So we want to make sure that you can get to work if your car broke down, or if you're experiencing housing instability and you need to either get into a new house or you got an eviction notice, things like that. We want to make sure that those immediate emergent needs are met first, and then we can kind of help with any longer term goals or plans to ensure that hopefully the emergency financial assistance won't be required again. But like we know, life happens.
Sure. And if I can just weigh in here, this is kind of part of our larger veteran homeless strategy. So, we feel like with this, folks that are threatened to be homeless or evicted or whatever, if we can keep them, with decent housing, that helps us solve our veteran homeless problem. And we are making tremendous progress in a lot of ways. But what we're finding with veteran homelessness is it takes a lot of little things to solve the problem. And this is kind of one thing at the ground level, like Stacy said, that we're trying to do. So, we really encourage folks, to maybe look at this before things get out of hand, with their situation, and maybe we can, help them from things deteriorating. So.
I have a quick question. If a veteran has a OTH other than honorable discharge, is that an automatic denial, or is there maybe some wiggle room on that?
You want me to handle that one, Stacy?
Well, I'll go ahead and say it's not an automatic denial, but there would have to be a lot more conversation and kind of detective work to figure out how we might be able to help, or what's going on.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the issues that has come up in our first year of this program, because not all OTHs are created equal. And so that, frankly, has been a very difficult thing for myself and our director, Dave Richmond, to kind of sort through, is what do we do when we come across those OTH cases? But Stacy hit the nail on the head. It really, we got to look into the nature of the discharge, the circumstances of the veteran, and it's a real gray area. I don't really have a good answer for it. We haven't really come up with a good answer yet, but we're just taking it case by case, and just trying to do the right thing. And there's a lot of varying opinions about using OTHs for making folks with OTHs accessible to VFAB, and we're trying to work through that.
So you would just basically suggest having a follow-up conversation with whoever, either the Easterseals or the American Legion.
Correct. I would definitely, in the section of who should apply, I mean, it really should be everyone should reach, if they have that emergent need, reach out, and we can help determine eligibility. Unfortunately, there may be people that we can't assist with the VFAP funds, but again, we're all pretty well connected in the veteran community, so if we can't help, then we might be able to connect them to another resource, or at least put feelers out there. So there's certainly no harm in giving us a call. I know Meredith on the referral line, she's been doing this for a while now, and sometimes I call her for ideas when when people's, because she's just doing it every day. So yeah, so she's pretty good.
Yeah, and we have resources too within our veteran homeless program, and like Stacy, hit the nail on the head. There are other programs and resources out there. So we want to hear from people. I guess is the bottom line I'd say on this.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, for the sake of time, let's move on to our next presenter, Emily, to talk about the HOPE program. I'm pretty excited about this because I have to admit I don't know a lot about this program myself, and anytime I can expand kind of my knowledge of available resources, I'm pretty excited for. So take it away.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me and giving me a chance to speak about the HOPE program. I have to admit I was not prepared to show a PowerPoint, but I think it would be good. So I'm going to try to share my screen. If it doesn't work, I'm just not going to mess around with it, and we'll just move on. But let's see. Can you guys see that?
Sure can.
Great. All right, so the HOPE program, HOPE stands for the Higher Opportunity for Pathways to Employment program, and it is a program administered by the Department of Health and Human Services. And it's a brand new program, which is pretty cool. So that is why maybe a lot of people have not heard of it yet. We just launched this January. So it's a brand new program. We're very excited. We think it's a great program, and we've gotten a lot of great feedback so far about the program. So I'm happy to share more about it. We are a program for parents who are thinking of pursuing education or training beyond high school, or maybe are currently pursuing training or education beyond high school. And so what that means is that could be a short-term certificate program. So like your CDL programs, a CNA program, an HVAC program, maybe a medical coding and billing program. That could be an associate's program. So those are your 2-year programs, or a bachelor's degree program. So that would be your 4-year program. And I will say, for a bachelor's degree program, the way that the law was written that authorized this program, it does say that those pursuing a bachelor's degree program, you just need to make sure your program is in a healthcare, technology, or engineering field to be eligible for the HOPE program. But if there's ever any question about that, please reach out, because there are a lot of different pathways to jobs in those fields, and we're pretty good at connecting the dots. So in a nutshell, the meat and potatoes of our program is we basically provide financial support to parents. It's no secret that if you're a parent and you're thinking of going to school, or you're already in school, you're probably strapped for time and money. So we are there to ease that burden for you, and hopefully make school seem more doable, more achievable if you are thinking of going, but it seems out of reach, or if you're already in school and you're worried you might have to leave because you just don't have the time and resources to continue right now, or if just having that little extra financial support to help pay for school-related things each month would ease that stress, so you could focus your time and your energy on your schoolwork. If that's getting in the way and that's falling to the wayside, we are here to help with that. So our goal is to get you to the finish line. So education is a marathon, and we want you to stay in the race without stopping. So I think what's really important to know about the HOPE program is that we are really focused on a rapid response to student needs. So once you're in the program, you will have direct access to the HOPE team. which is me and my 2 other teammates. So we are a very tiny team. I know the Department of Health and Human Services is a very large agency, but we are a very small team within that. And when you call or email, you will be connected directly with us. So we really get to know you. We get to know you through emailing back and forth, through talking on the phone. And I think that's one of the things about this program that makes it really neat and makes it really effective, because you know, we know that when there is a financial need, maybe it's there's often not a lot of time maybe to resolve that need, and it could be urgent. So we really want to make sure that we're able to get you what you need, so you can focus on school and your other life responsibilities. So I think what's important also to know is who's eligible, who can be in the HOPE program. So we can serve up to 500 students statewide. Right now we are at about 140. So we have plenty of room right now. And as people exit the program, as they graduate, more spots open up. So we really hope to fill those 500 spots. So if you know anyone who you think might be eligible, or if you're eligible, please don't hesitate to reach out to us or apply. So basically, what's most important to know for who might be eligible for the program is that you need to be a parent or a caretaker relative of a minor child that's living with you at least some of the time. So maybe there's a joint custody arrangement. We really don't get into looking at percentages. As long as you know that child is living in your home at least some of the time, that would qualify you as a parent or caretaker relative. You must be already enrolled or accepted to a training program. So if you're thinking of going back to school and you haven't applied yet and you're not really sure what you want to do, figure that out, and then know that we are here to help you once you apply and get accepted to school. Then please come to us, because we are here to help you through the duration of your program. And the other important piece is once you achieve a bachelor's degree, that's where the HOPE program has to stop. So as long as you don't already have a marketable bachelor's degree, you are eligible for the HOPE program. So it's okay if you already hold another credential, a certificate, or an associate's degree, that's okay. And you're thinking about maybe changing careers, or you want to build on that credential that you already earned, that's okay. Please come to us. And for those familiar with the Tanf program, I do need to say this: that's the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families program. Because we use Tanf funding, we cannot have dual enrollment. So that's another important piece. If you are already receiving funding from the Tanf program, you would have to choose between the HOPE program or Tanf. And so I will say we also look at cost effectiveness when we look at your program. So we just need to make sure that with all the resources pooled between the HOPE program, maybe any grants you received or loans that you're taking out, financially that program is within reach. Because what we would hate to have happen is to have you invest time and energy, get all the way to the finish line, and then owe a balance to the school, where that school then is going to hold that credential hostage essentially until you pay that balance. So we just want to look at the whole education plan to make sure that it's going to work for you and get you to the finish line. And then because we are an employment related program, we do want to know when you apply what job you're hoping to get at the end of your program. And we want to know that to just, again, make sure that your education plan that you currently have is going to get you there. And we need to make sure the job has openings in Maine. So we have come up with a way to determine that. And so we've said if the job has 30 or more total annual openings statewide, and that's according to the Department of Labor, then that program is eligible if that program will lead to one of those jobs. And let me tell you, there are so many jobs on that list. It's really rare that we come across a job that is not on that list. So that's usually not a barrier for folks applying. So we do have financial requirements. We have the same income threshold as the food supplement program, the SNAP program. So if you're familiar with that program. So just as an example, I will say for a family of 4, that means that your annual income has to be at or below $48,470 for the HOPE program, and that breaks down to $4,039 annually. So that gives you some sort of idea. And we don't count certain types of income. So if you are right on the threshold, maybe a little bit over, I think it's still a good idea to check in and check with us because you still could be eligible. So we also offer, in addition to the financial supports, which I'll go through in a second exactly what those look like, we also offer support for student navigators. So those student navigators are really personal consultants to our participants. So once you're in the program, you have access to someone who you can bounce questions off of, who can help you fill out the Fafsa, to receive that financial aid, can help you look for additional resources if you need additional resources for school, maybe find childcare, register for classes, and it's not a requirement. We don't force any of our students to meet with a navigator. It's not a requirement to be in the program. It's just an added benefit to being in the HOPE program if that is something that you would like to take advantage of. So in terms of the support services that we offer, they are really, I'll run through them, and they are really the common things, I would say, that people need when they're in school, especially if you're a parent. So common things people may find they would like some extra funds to help cover. So one of those things is your tuition. So if between your financial aid and other grants that you may be receiving that's specifically designed to go towards tuition, we don't look at other grants that are not supposed to be applied to tuition. Just those that are resources or financial resources that are already applied to tuition. If there's a gap and there's a balance that you owe after the financial aid is applied, we can help you make up that difference. So you don't need to take out a loan or, piece together a way to pay that remaining balance. We can help cover that gap. And also this question has come up. If you are not eligible for financial aid right now, for whatever reason, or maybe you're in a program that's not eligible for financial aid, some of these certificate programs, these shorter term programs aren't eligible for financial aid, that's okay. That's not a requirement of the program. That's why we're here, but we at least would want to just ask you if you had applied for financial aid or if your program is eligible for financial aid before we pay that tuition. And then we can also help with past tuition. So this has been actually a really useful resource to some of our applicants already. So that means if you went to school and then had to leave and then would like to go back now and pick up again, but you can't either enroll in that same school or you can't get access to your transcripts to from your school to now re-enroll in a new school because you owe a balance to either school, we can help pay off up to $1,500 of that past due balance, that balance that's owed from your past training or education at that school to help you get re-enrolled. So that's pretty cool, because that definitely has come up, and that has been a barrier for some people who say, hey, I'm ready to go back to school again. You know, now is a good time for me to pick this up. I'm just, I can't afford that $800 that I owe to re-enroll in school, and they won't let me re-enroll until I pay that. We also can help pay for childcare. So of course, that is a very common need. You know, it makes all the difference in the world in terms of it's so expensive, and the amount of time that parents have to devote to school. So we can help pay for childcare. We can help pay for your gas. So that's your mileage to school. If you're working, we can also help pay for childcare and gas to help cover your trips and your time at work. Or we can help with books, supplies, tools, and equipment. So that's been a category that we find our nursing students, and then our students in the trades. So like your HVAC programs or oil burner technician programs, those tools can get really pricey. So that's been a really great resource for those students. We can also help with a computer, especially right now with the current situation. A lot of classes are online or will be online through the summer. And even regardless, you know, it's hard to do much these days without a computer. So we can help you get a computer if that's a need that you have. We can help with to keep your car on the road. So that would be like your vehicle inspection, registration, repair. It's hard to do much in Maine without a car. We know cars are vitally important to our students, so they can continue to get to school and to work. So we want to help you keep your car on the road. We can also help with eyeglasses, so and dental work, and anything else really that could potentially be a barrier for you in completing your program. You know, even if it doesn't fit neatly into one of those categories, we can help with. So I also want to point out that we are a dual enrollment program. So what that means is that if you are already in another program, so maybe it's a financial support program, maybe it's another workforce development program or education program or scholarship program, that's great. And you can still come to us. We want to work to combine resources with multiple programs because we all have the same goal. And if we can pool all those resources, and that's going to make the difference to get you to the finish line, that is what we want to do. So I think that's really the meat and potatoes here. And I want to say that if you want to apply, please find our application online. www.maine.gov/DHHS-HOPE. You can also find it at a local DHHS office, but right now, I think online, the offices have minimal hours, so online is going to be really your best bet, and we can take electronically filled out and signed applications. So that's really the best way to get us an application, and then just email it to us. And we don't have our email address up there, but it is on the application and it's on the website. So again, email that application to us. It would be me or one of my other two teammates that would be looking at that and getting back to you. And you can also call us. And if you're already in the system, and you already have a record on file with the Department of Health and Human Services because maybe you're in another program with us, it's really simple to start your application over the phone. So we can also do it that way. And we are working remotely right now, but we still have email and phone access as usual. So there's really no changes right now to how we're running the program. So that's it in a nutshell. Basically, if education or training seems out of reach, or you're worried that you might have to leave school because you just don't have the time right now or can't afford it, and you think you might qualify, we are the program for you. So please reach out to us.
That's great. Thank you, Emily. Does anybody have any questions for Emily? Because I do. I only have one right now. I was just hoping for the eligibility requirements, I was hoping you could elaborate just a little more on what it means to you to be a Maine resident. Just specifically when we're dealing with you know, active duty military and service members, you know, they may have changed their residency for, you know, Texas doesn't pay state taxes, and maybe that was something beneficial to them at the time, and now they're moving back, or is there even a length requirement for the state residency? I'm just curious for a little bit more of that information.
Sure, that's a great question. Yeah, I didn't really touch on that too much. So basically, it's broad. So we say, as long as you live in Maine right now and you intend to make Maine your home, you're a Maine resident. So we know intentions can change down the line, things can happen, but as long as that's your intent right now, then you're a Maine resident.
That's fantastic. That's what I was kind of hoping to hear, and I'm glad. Anybody else? Great. Well, thanks, Emily. I appreciate that. It was a great intro to your program, and hopefully I can add that to my resource list now.
That'd be great. Yeah, please do. Thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely. So I know we're a couple minutes over, but did anybody have any last minute questions for any of our presenters? No? Awesome. Well, this was recorded. I have figured out how the recordings work, so I'll be sure to share this out, and we can, you know, push it out to our audiences. So thanks everybody for joining in, and next week we're going to do a little bit more of a deeper dive on how to actually like fill out a FAFSA and apply for scholarships.